Solana gets denied, well, delayed. Told my thumbnail guy, I said, look, when you put delayed, he put denied. Either way, ETF ain't happening until at least October. What does it mean for the rest of the altcoins? We got Forrest joining us to break down the charts. We're going to talk about price action, where he thinks the markets are and where the markets are heading. Some people starting to call for a top, saying this is very similar to what happened in 2021. We beat the all-time high by just a little bit, and then it was the bear market. What are our updated thoughts on the current market cycle? We'll have that conversation. We're going to talk about XRP and how it's gaining ground very rapidly in the RWA space. We're going to talk about Chainlink. We're going to talk about Larry Fink's new position at the World Economic Forum and what that could mean for crypto on a global scale. We have that and much, much more on today's episode of Sin City Crypto. Let's go. Welcome, 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 everyone. It's a beautiful Friday. We're happy to be here with you. And we're also happy to have my man Forrest here with us. Forrest, welcome back, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for having me, or thanks for joining us. Forrest, got the Towns airdrop. Thank you for bringing me into the Towns community. Those of watching, I know we did a giveaway, I think last time you were on the show a couple weeks ago. So that person that ended up getting a free entire year subscription to Towns should have gotten the airdrop as well. And so just wanted to say thank you. You're always making me money, man. I got to like buy you lunch or something.
Trying to.
All right. Forrest, real quick, before I get into any topics of conversation, what are your just general thoughts on the markets, where we're at? Has the recent price action changed your thesis at all as far as where the market is and where the market is heading? And if you want to pull up a chart and talk about it, feel free, or just give your thoughts in general.
Yeah, I mean, this probably won't be a popular take. You guys know me. I'm generally very, very bullish, and I even had targets as high as, like 300K Bitcoin. But Bitcoin has just been dragging its feet. It hasn't been able to even get through, like, kind of go back on the daily. Right, the fact that Bitcoin got stuffed at 120 multiple times, and we're still consolidating under 120. I don't like this at all, to be honest. There's still a very strong bull case to be made. So if Bitcoin can run up north of like 140, I'll be much more willing to be like very bullish on those like 300K targets. But the fact that we've now, I mean, like generally speaking, these SFPs, which you just described, when you make an all-time high and then fail right away, generally lead to a lot of downside. Now, it's not 100% in terms of, we're just going to nuke from this point forward, but it's just not as strong of a Bitcoin market as what we would hope for. On top of that, you've got Saylor done buying. The U.S. government's not buying. Yeah, I am more in line with the idea now that I think we're going to have an alt season, and then alt season is generally the top. So actually, I think Bitcoin, I think most of the money for the cycle's probably been made on Bitcoin in terms of I think Bitcoin's close to topped, if not topped. I think it'll chop around while alts send super hard, and then it'll be over. That's my base case right now. Very open to more Bitcoin upside if Bitcoin can prove itself and start, pushing up above this wedge and break out above this wedge. If we can see something like that going into like mid-September and we get up at okay, now all of a sudden we can start talking about much higher targets. But until we can clear, 125 convincingly, I think Bitcoin's relatively topped. I think all the flows are going into ETH and altcoins. And I think ETH and altcoins are going to blow off and very likely put in the cycle top to some degree.
Forrest, what are do you have a couple of, I don't want to say indicators, but metrics or things you look at that tell you the top is near to where you can start de-risking or taking some money off the table? Anything you look out for, and you can share with the audience that maybe they can put on the radar as well?
Sure. I mean, like the biggest one, if you go to the Bitcoin weekly chart, the biggest one was the one that I kind of just described, which is really just alt dominance, alts running, or ETH Bitcoin, right? So generally speaking, like a lot of people, might be upset that I'm kind of, my base case is kind of like cycle top is in almost. I'm very loose on this view, by the way. Like if Bitcoin will actually get out of its own way and show strength and move, like actually make an impulsive move that sticks above 125,000, then I'll be willing to flip back to being a lot more bullish for a longer period of time. But people oftentimes don't realize like how quickly like ETH can run and alts can run. ETH, this move out of ETH, actually have it on the wrong scale. This was like 180% move against Bitcoin for ETH, right? So basically ETH over 2x'd in 50 days while Bitcoin was distributing. Bitcoin was in like a 50-day distribution top, and ETH was still able to like 2x. And a lot of alts like Solana and a lot of other alts were able to run during this phase of the market. If we're seeing something like that right now, where Bitcoin's just kind of sideways and distributing, then we very well might see a 5 to 10K ETH here in the next month or so, while Bitcoin does nothing, or maybe even bleeds off a little bit. So I'm bullish, but I'm very cautious about here. But I'm very cautious here. But the big thing that you want to look out for a Bitcoin top is a big move out of altcoins, right? Because if all the money's going into altcoins, it's not going into Bitcoin, right? Just as simple as that. If all the money is being shoved into Ethereum and Solana and XRP and Cardano and Stellar Lumens, why is anybody, there's no money then going into Bitcoin? And perfect example of that is that Michael Saylor's done buying Bitcoin. He's not done, but for all practical purposes, he's not raising nearly as much money. I mean, it's like a tiny fraction of the amount of Bitcoin that he was buying. Meanwhile, ETH has like $27 billion lined up through Tom Lee and a couple of other treasury companies to buy, right? So all the money right now, all the flows are very in favor of ETH and altcoins. So I actually think the alts can run super hard here, and that Bitcoin's a little bit a little stymied, a little tougher of a hold at the moment.
Forrest, we had this recent dip, right? We were at 124, and then we came right back down to 118, 117.5. And if it was off the back of the new, Scott Besson was on Fox Business, and he pretty much said, like, we're not buying. We're just going to use the confiscated Bitcoin and then just hold it, not sell it. He also divulged 15 to 20 billion in Bitcoin holdings for the U.S. government at current prices, which we did the math. Top line, which is 20 billion, was only 166,000 Bitcoin, when we're all expecting the U.S. government to be holding over 220,000 Bitcoin. And so I don't think the Trump administration has been selling, but maybe Biden administration was selling. There was rumors of that when he was leaving office. And then today he comes out and he kind of backtracked a little bit, Scott Besson I'm speaking of, and he said, well, we're still looking for budget neutral ways. And so when you think about that, right, do you think that alone was the reason that Bitcoin kind of had a spill off, or do you think it's more structurally as well in what you kind of showed from a technical standpoint?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, we had we had a surprise inflation print that doesn't help. So that kind of weakened markets across the board. Stock market's much stronger than crypto at the moment. But that was really what kind of caused the impulse down. But then you've got just a general lack of buyers. So Michael Saylor's not buying, and Scott Besson just confirmed that the U.S. government's not going to buy. And he came out and said budget neutral way. I think that's nonsense. I don't think they're looking for budget neutral ways. I don't think there's anything meaningful is going to be. I don't think any meaningful amount of Bitcoin is going to be purchased in a budget neutral fashion. And if I'm wrong on that, I'll flip bullish, and like if they're actually going to find a way to buy a lot of Bitcoin. But I think that would just be a horrendous look. I think that just the U.S. government buying Bitcoin is borderline insane and just like bad for the taxpayer. I won't get into all of that, but yeah, I think more so it's just like there's no buyers for Bitcoin. Who's buying Bitcoin apart from your standard hodlers and DCAers? All the money that's being raised that would normally be going to MicroStrategy is now going to SBET and Bitmine, or is it BMNR, Tom Lee's treasury company. So I think ETH is just poaching a lot of the flows for Bitcoin at the moment.
Yeah, you know, I was having this conversation with Rob, and we were showing the discrepancy of you know, or the how the flows have gone over the last month, and Bitcoin flows have gone down and ETH flows have gone up. And my question to him was, is there a correlation there, or you think just people are people selling, taking profits from their Bitcoin ETF and rolling it into Ethereum, which is what we see classically in market cycles? You know, you look at that chart, it's Bitcoin to ETH to large cap, mid cap, small caps, and then it's the end of the cycle, right? So yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. I'm just curious, Forrest, you know, you said the government would look stupid if they bought Bitcoin. Why do you say that?
Yeah, I think it's fundamentally wrong in the sense that it hurts everybody who doesn't own any Bitcoin. For like your taxpayer money, like I think that there's a lot of things that, you know, are taxpayer money, or, you know, whatever you want to call, you know, you want to say, oh, we could take the tariff revenue. Tariffs are a tax, a different form of tax. So the government selling its assets or taking, you know, some of its assets and allocating them to Bitcoin, I personally think is just very bad for anybody who's not long Bitcoin. You're just, you know, on somebody else's dime, the taxpayer's dime, buying a speculative crypto asset. Like I don't really like, I can't really get behind that. Like I think there's much better ways to, you know, approach the budget deficit.
Forrest, have you seen what we spend money on? Have you seen where we send taxpayer dollars to? You don't think?
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure. I think all of that's wrong too, but I think like Bitcoin falls, buying Bitcoin falls. Trust me, I would be thrilled. Don't get me wrong. I would be thrilled if they did, because we'd make a ton of money. You just long Bitcoin, smash buy Bitcoin, and make a ton of money. And all of us that are long crypto and long Bitcoin would make a ton of money, but it would be at the expense of other taxpayers. I just think like morally it's a little bit icky. I don't like it. But look, if that's what they're going to do, if that's what, you know, would actually happen, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think there'd be a massive amount of pushback, as I think there should be a lot of pushback. But if that does happen, it's just smash buy Bitcoin, front run them, and even if like even if the U.S. government does buy Bitcoin, it's going to leak that they're buying Bitcoin, and then they're going to get front run and they're going to get a worse price. So I just think there's no great way for them to buy Bitcoin and not look super bad doing it. Yeah. But if they do, we'll make a ton of money, and that'll be fine too.
Yeah, you know, I respect your opinion, but I kind of disagree, man. I think, you know, they've essentially said, right, there's a bill to buy 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years. And if people decide to not go out and get some Bitcoin, whether it's the normies or Wall Street, then that's on them. Sorry, like, you knew the government was planning. There's a freaking bill. There's a $1 million Bitcoin bill that I don't know if it's been introduced yet. But still, like, you see these things and you hear it and you're like, okay, well, like, how do I get a piece of the pie? It's the same way you see.
But people can't afford Bitcoin. Like, the people can't afford to eat at Chipotle, let alone afford to go buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's true.
And then we're going to spend more of their, you know, and the reason they can't afford that is in large part because of the government waste that we're in and the amount of inflation that we've got. So it's like there's a large portion of people that are just like, we're going to be spending their taxpayer money on something that is going to get a lot of other people rich and them not, which, like, I don't know. I feel bad about the entire thing. Point. I think there would be just massive pushback.
I definitely see your point. The way I look at it, Forrest, is I look at all the dumb stuff that the government spends our money on. And maybe it's because I'm biased and I know the space and I know Bitcoin and I appreciate it. And I'm just like, yeah, do it, buy it. But like, I get where you're coming from. I don't know. Maybe Trump was blowing smoke up everyone's ass, potentially. It was just funny to see Scott Bessent backtrack and put out a statement on his X saying, no, we're still looking at budget. He probably heard it from someone, maybe from Trump himself. He's starting to get some flack from the people listening and watching and say, whoa, what do you mean? And maybe he was kind of forced to do what he did. But either way, okay, let's talk about Solana. Solana ETF, 4 Solana ETFs are getting delayed again. This was interesting for us. I'm not going to lie. I thought these would get approved by now. But hey, maybe Paul Atkins, maybe there's something we don't know. I don't know. But a little insight here. The SEC keeps delaying Solana ETF applications, postponing 4 filings from Bitwise, 21 Shares, Canary Capital, and Marinade Finance. It has until mid-October to give the final yes or no. Forrest, I think I'm speaking for both of us when I say Paul Atkins is a crypto bull. Okay, we can say in general or relative to what we saw with Gary Gensler. Any insight as to, I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball here, but any insight into why they keep delaying these? I mean, you think they're waiting for some sort of framework? You see this as just a bearish piece of news, or like, what are your thoughts here?
I think it just piles on to how different the actual actions are versus what they're going around saying. Like the Trump administration has been, super pro crypto. They got some legislation through. We're going to make us the Bitcoin capital of the world, the crypto capital of the world, but then they haven't actually gone and bought any, which I'm personally, like I said, against them buying some. But if they were so pro crypto, it's not difficult to find budget neutral ways to go and buy a few Bitcoin just to say, hey, we're like, and I could get behind the idea of like, oh, we're going to cut, we're going to cut $100 million over here and then buy $100 million worth of Bitcoin. The U.S. government buying Bitcoin isn't going to necessarily move the needle, but it would signify, hey, we're committed to Bitcoin. But they haven't actually done anything that's like super pro Bitcoin or super pro. Same thing with the SEC. They're sitting out and saying all systems go to become the crypto capital of the world. That's what the Paul Atkins announcement said, I think yesterday. And then the very next day they delay the Solana ETFs.
Yeah.
I don't fundamentally see a reason why you have to delay the Solana ETFs when you already have approved Ethereum ETFs. Now, there could be some hangup that I'm unaware of, but it seems like you would want to greenlight these things and get them done quicker if you're actually truly pro crypto. And I think the crypto market is kind of calling BS on a lot of this stuff because it's from this administration and even from the SEC, it's been all talk of, we support crypto, we're pro crypto, we're all about crypto. But when you look at what has tangibly been done since Trump took office to, actually, apart from passing some solid legislation, nothing's actually been truly changed apart from some stablecoin stuff. So I don't know. I think everybody, there's a very strong pro crypto narrative that's being touted in this administration and the SEC. But I think the actions are just not as in line with how they're talking.
Awesome. I'm putting up a poll as you speak. Are you happy with the Trump administration, administration's progress on crypto so far? Do a yes or no. I'm curious to what the chat's going to say. So yeah, but I'm happy you brought that up for us because I look at it as well as why the denials, right? I mean, it's just strange. But anyways, maybe it has to do with staking. I don't know. I do think it'll get approved, but I'm kind of like you, Forrest. Like, we're so bullish and we're being told all these things. Well, why can't we just approve the ETF, right? And so, yeah, you mentioned, Forrest, Paul Atkins. He was on Fox Business this morning talking about Project Crypto. Let's take a listen to this video clip here.
So a couple of weeks ago, the administration issued.
Gina, can we get some boost on the audio here, please?
So a couple of weeks ago, the administration issued the President's Working Group's report on digital assets in the United States, and there were clear directions to the SEC. We're part of the PWG, that President's Working Group, and clear recommendations for us to go forward and help make what the President has announced, his intention to make America the crypto capital of the world and have the world run on American technology. So we're mobilizing at the SEC all our different divisions and offices to focus on making that announcement become reality. So that's with our corporation finance division, investment management, and others. We're focusing on what we can do to make the regulations of the SEC encompass the crypto assets and also make it so that people can have some clarity going forward. We're working with Congress. Obviously, the Genius Act was enacted here a few weeks ago with a big announcement at the White House by the president himself, and as he signed it. So that I thought was a very good step forward. And now there are other bills in Congress that are being considered, and when they return from their recess, I look forward to much more forward progress.
Forrest, after watching that, I think they're waiting as long as possible to see if they can get something passed in Congress before they approve the ETFs. That's kind of what I took away from what he said. I mean, do you kind of agree, or what do you think?
I think my takeaway just in general with all this stuff, with the government being pro-crypto now, or this administration being pro-crypto now, is just like the government's very inefficient in general, and
so true.
Nothing runs fast in the government, and nothing gets done quickly, and nothing gets done efficiently. So I have very low expectations and hopes for what actually gets done in a timely manner. Maybe it'll happen next year. Maybe it'll happen 2 years from now. Maybe this gets pushed into the next administration. I don't know. But what I do know is that the government's slow and inefficient. So I think I think the market's been frustrated, and I've been frustrated with how the admin's been talking so pro crypto, but just how slowly things are getting done. I mean, like they did push through the stablecoin bill with relative timeliness. But aside from that, that's the only really big thing that's been accomplished. It's nice that they have positive sentiment towards crypto, but I think you need to actually see some things getting done.
Yeah. And honestly, Forrest, from what we had a year and a half ago, this is great, right? I mean, a year ago, under Gary Gensler and Joe Biden, it was a disaster. You didn't know who was going to get sued, if you were going to get sued, if I was going to get sued, And so it is night and day. But they talked a big game, and, well, we want to see some of those things come to fruition. Okay, let's talk about the world's most powerful man. Some say in period, some say just in finance, Larry Fink. This one's interesting for us. Larry Fink joins the World Economic Forum board as interim chair. Now, why is this important? Well, Larry Fink is arguably the biggest Bitcoin bull in all of Wall Street when it comes to pedigree, right? His background and his reach and his, I don't want to say persuasiveness, but how much kind of say he has in a lot of things in the world of finance. And now he's taking it from just let's say the U.S. to global, joining the World Economic Forum as interim chair. Any takeaways from this for us? I know it's a pretty straightforward announcement, but do you think this is going to bleed over into globally? Maybe, China becomes more open to crypto. Countries who have historically been anti-crypto, and maybe they become more pro. Any long tail effects you think this is going to have on the crypto space?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is, I'm not super familiar with the necessarily the power that the World Economic Forum, interim chair has. But Larry Fink wants tokenization. If you look at, Larry Fink as somebody who's very influential and powerful and is moving into potentially an even more influential and powerful, position globally. You have to think that's going to get him closer to his goals. So I think this is very bullish for ETH. It's very bullish for altcoins. It's very bullish for protocols that are focused on real world assets and tokenization. But again, I think things just move so slowly. So I don't know if this headline's just going to, it hasn't yet, but I don't know if this is just going to instantly pump the markets. Hopefully it does, but I do think this is definitely a step in the right direction on a longer term time frame for real world assets and tokenization of assets.
Amen. You mentioned ETH for us. Look at this, posted by Scott Melker. JP Morgan analyst said, we think ETH is emerging as a direct way to gain exposure to the expected meteoric growth in stable coins as the Ethereum network hosts most of these stablecoin assets. Now, we shared news earlier this week. Circle is launching their own L1. Stripe is launching their own L1. And I said this is probably bad news for the likes of Ripple, for the likes of Avalanche, for the likes of literally everyone outside of maybe Ethereum. What are your thoughts, Forrest, on what this JP Morgan analyst said? And then what are your thoughts on Circle and Stripe launching their own L1s? Who does that benefit and who does that hurt the most?
Yeah, I tend to agree. Like, stablecoins are going to continue to grow, and I think there's very likely, that ETH is going to be a predominant benefactor of that. As far as Stripe and some other payment processors launching L1s, I don't necessarily think that Ripple in particular was ever going to poach a lot of stablecoin flows from Stripe. I could be wrong on that, but I'm not necessarily certain. That I think Stripe is very heavily involved in like retail payments and payment processing. Like, you run your card at a restaurant, Stripe handles that. You buy something off a website, Stripe handles that. But as far as like cross-border remittances, cross-border payments, bank, B2B payments, I think that's more the lane of Ripple, if I'm not mistaken. So I think just in general, it's probably a good thing that you're seeing stablecoin adoption on all fronts. That I think it's going to be one of those things where, the saying is a rising tide lifts all ships. I don't necessarily look at it as I think the pie is getting so big so fast with stablecoins that I don't necessarily think that additional competition is going to be a bad thing.
Yeah, I was thinking, who is this going to benefit the most? And the clear answer to me is Chainlink, right? That's able to connect private and public blockchains. And so as these large institutions enter the space, whether it's in the stablecoin vertical or something else, and they decide to launch a private network or a private blockchain, well, how are they going to get connected with all the, where all the liquidity is? And well, there's one really that does it, and that's Chainlink. And so I don't know. We'll see the long tail effects of this. I do think this hurts Avalanche. Avalanche's big thing, their 9,000 upgrade was launch your own L1 using the Avalanche Substack. And now it's like, hey, you have these products, these blockchains, they're already built out, they're time tested, they have liquidity, but you still chose to launch your own blockchain. Interesting, and we'll see what the effects of these are. Forrest, if you want to queue up an Ethereum chart, I do want to share this, and then we'll jump into that chart. Ethereum validator exits just hit an all-time high. Largest spike ever recorded, over 767,000 ETH, which is estimated at $3.5 billion, is waiting to leave the network. And so the validator queue, I think, 10 days or 14 days? 14 and a half days. And so you ask yourself this question: why would I unstake my ETH? Right? I think the easiest answer is you want to sell it. Not saying that's going to happen, but that would be my answer. But Forrest, what are your thoughts on that? And then let's take a look at an Ethereum chart.
Yeah. So as much as I'd like to just be super confident on exactly what ETH is going to do, actually do think it's near low for a couple reasons. But keep in mind, this has just had a very meteoric rise in a very brief period of time. And the people who have been bag holding since down here are very likely unstaking their ETH to sell, because a few months ago, their ETH was worth 1,400. Now they're, almost 4 times as wealthy as they were a couple months ago if they've been staking this entire time. So I do think you'll have some natural profit taking. I also understand that there's $27 billion worth of dry powder left for some of these treasury companies to bid ETH with. But just from a technical perspective here, I guess we'll do the 4-hour. You had this impulsive move. Whoops. Trading view is a little bit laggy, so bear with me.
Oh, you're good.
You have this impulsive move, and a lot of times you'll simply, like on a deep retrace, which is, we're in a shallow retrace on the larger move, but we're on a deep retrace since this impulse. A lot of times what you'll see is this 4-hour impulsive move will get challenged again. So you'll move down towards the base of that candle, which is essentially what we've done. Maybe we go a little bit lower, but we're starting to see some demand kick in. So the thought process there is just, I'll go into the hourly here. This is where you saw a lot of breakout buyers and a lot of smarter buyers. They were buying the beginning of the move, right? They bought the beginning of this breakout move. So these smarter buyers were buying and creating demand in this region. And if that demand gets challenged again, you would expect some level, enough demand to at least create some sort of a bounce. And oftentimes you can see bottoms form in those regions. There's plenty of examples if you go back and look at charts where that's happened before. But beyond that, I mean, we are just we are in a very hot Ethereum market at the moment, and this is, to me, for the time being at least, this is just a bull flag, kind of a steep one, kind of a nasty one that we may be at the bottom of. You can also, for anybody who's into Elliott waves or maybe harmonic patterns, there's your ABCD correction potentially. These are always very difficult to spot. And time, they're obvious after the fact, but in live action they're a little bit tougher to spot. So I do think there's a very strong case to be made that ETH maybe it comes down another $100 or so, maybe it comes down to 4,300. But I think we're close to at least a really solid bounce on ETH. And then where you want to be getting a little bit more bullish is if you just see this thing drop straight through this impulsive zone, come back up and fail a back test. And there's your head and shoulders. That's where you probably want to be selling into, what was prior demand, turning into resistance. And then we're probably in for a deeper correction, which again, right, keep in mind, ETH has just been on a tear here. ETH could come all the way back down to 3,500 and still be in an uptrend. Keep that in mind.
Oh, wow.
Right. ETH could come all the way, this last low was 3,400, 3,400. Sorry, trading views being so laggy. But we could come back down to 3,500 and that's still a higher low. It would be a very brutal, move out of ETH here, but you could liquidate a lot of these people, come back down to, the impulsive move down here at 3,700 and bounce there. So have to be very open-minded here, but I do think you want to align yourself with momentum if you're trading ETH. I think ETH is very bullish at the moment. I think you have to be, if you're holding spot ETH, you have to be very open to a deeper pullback. If you're trading leverage, if you're trading kind of the shorter term moves, I think you can give it a chance to bounce here and maybe even take a long and just be willing to cut on a back test, a bearish back test of like this 4,300, 4,400 level. So just have to be open to what the market actually gives you. It's very, I can't sit here and say, oh, this is exactly what the market's going to do. Here's a couple scenarios and how to play each one.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for that, Forrest. I was going to share this, but some calling for a $6,100 ETH. I'm fairly bullish on Ethereum. I think if the cycle plays out like I think it is, I think ETH will get to 12 to 15K. But who knows? Who knows? As Forrest mentioned, we'll see how Bitcoin bounces back. We'll see what kind of flows we'll get into alts and how high altcoin dominance can get. And I guess, for that, time will tell. Do want to give a big shout out to our exchange partner, Weeks. If you're looking for a platform to trade on, Weeks is our go-to. High liquidity, no VPN, no KYC. You can trade up to 400x leverage on Bitcoin. You shouldn't do it. It's pretty risky. But I took an L on an XRP trade, and then we still have our Bitcoin trade open, and we got in at around 116.9. That is currently 7% in the profit. And so if you're looking for a platform to trade on, there's a link in the description with Weeks, and they're doing like a $2 million giveaway. So shout out to Weeks. Forrest, we'll take a look at the markets here. So on the day, your biggest gainer is Flare Network, 9.5% up. Mantle up 7.6%. Aerodrome, which is an interesting one. Aerodrome up 5.3%. Now, Aerodrome, some bullish news from them, and I'll pull it up on CoinMarketCap. some bullish news from them was when Coinbase came out and said that literally anything on the base chain is going to be available to buy on Coinbase. And it's going to be, I believe, ran through Aerodrome. And you look at this project, 1.2 billion in market cap. This is one that Rob's been talking about. We've been talking about on the show as well. What are your thoughts on Aerodrome, Forrest, and the integration with Coinbase, the main app, and what this could potentially mean, and how high can this thing go in market cap value?
Yeah, it's bullish. I'm currently long Aerodrome. I think I got back in around like 90, 95 cents. It's one of those that have been bullish on for a little while. And just the price action on it has been so choppy.
Yeah.
Price action was very, very, very choppy. But was able to get in, on the news that Coinbase was integrating it. And it's up like 30 or 40% from there. I think it's pretty inflationary, if I'm not mistaken, in the sense that there's a lot of token rewards if you stake Aerodrome, which can be very beneficial if you do. But if you're just holding it without staking it and locking it up, which is a dangerous game to play. But there's quite a bit of inflation baked into the emissions. As far as a price target, it's very difficult to say. I think you have to look at, where was its prior all-time high? And now that it's integrating into the Coinbase app, shouldn't it theoretically be able to go higher above its prior all-time high? I think that's like a little bit of flawed logic, but I think there's something there in the sense that, all right, this wasn't integrated in the Coinbase app to all of their, millions of users. But now it is. So theoretically, like in theory, it should go higher than its prior all-time high, assuming, and on top of that, ETH is a lot higher now than ETH was at the last Aerodrome all-time high, and Base has more users and things have grown. So I think for starters, you just have to look at this thing make an all-time high. Unless crypto just really, really struggles and ETH falls off a cliff, I don't think it's going to. Yeah. But over the next couple of months, I think you got to look at Aerodrome making an all-time high. And then from there, you just got to, trade the chart from day to day.
Cardano's been on the run too for us. On the last week, the biggest gainer in the top 30, top 40 over the last week. And we can actually sort it out. Outside of OKB, OKB was, they burned like $20 billion of their tokens. I mean, just, unnatural price movement, right? Aerodrome, Radium, right? DeFi's running, another exchange token, Lido, which I'm becoming more and more bullish on, and then Cardano. So when it comes to layer one, Cardano is the best gainer on the 7-day, right? Up to 94 cents. This thing was over $1, and then the Scott Besson thing happened, and everything started dumping. Before us, I put out a Patreon post, and I told people to keep an eye on projects that are going to get potential treasuries. You had news of a Litecoin treasury, and another news of another company that's looking to add Litecoin. We're hearing rumblings of XRP treasuries, sweet treasuries. One, do you agree with that? That maybe a good vertical to have exposure to is projects you believe will get treasuries. We saw what Chainlink did, right? The Chainlink reserve, where they bought a crap load of Link tokens for their reserve, and Chainlink went up to like $25. And do you agree with that kind of sentiment as far as that vertical? And if you do, are there any projects that come to mind that maybe people don't have on their radar yet that could potentially get treasuries that could result in positive price action?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the phase, the narrative of the market, right? Everything's just kind of like the treasury. The assets that have treasuries are doing really, really well. Started with Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. Now we're seeing it in ETH. And I think you're going to see these assets perform so well that you're just going to see it trickle down in terms of market cap. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see XRP. Wouldn't be surprised to see Cardano. Wouldn't be surprised to see Tron. But yeah, actually, as far as like what projects to watch, I mean, maybe Cardano and XRP. Those are like some of your next largest market cap tokens or coins. I actually I don't track the Cardano chart very much, and I'm very skeptical of crypto as a whole right now because it's been trading just so, outside of ETH and a few other things, it's just been trading so poorly in terms of I'll give you a great example. In a bullish market, in a very strong bullish market, here's Dogecoin. Dogecoin prints this just textbook, beautiful inverse head and shoulders. Sorry for TradingView being so laggy.
Yeah, mine too.
Gets stuffed up here, gets absolutely stuffed, faked out, and right back down to the range lows. Now, maybe this will turn into a larger right shoulder and we'll still be okay here. But I'm just very skeptical of crypto as a whole right now, especially after Bitcoin failed to break out. So I think, with that in mind, that crypto is very sketchy right now. Still just, trying to take away any sort of bias and just looking at this chart for Cardano, I think it's actually quite bullish. It's got an inverted head and shoulders, which we know that those can break down, of course, as we just saw Doge. But this is on a daily time frame. It's showing a lot of strength. It's made a daily higher high and a higher low. It's got a key level at $1 to get through. I think above $1, this starts looking very good. And then, in the other aspect of this is an inverted head and shoulders with an upward sloping neckline, which is generally bullish, right? Your inverse head and shoulders. I'll try to draw this despite the lag. Your inverted head and shoulders that are downtrending necklines generally aren't going to be as strong. Whereas your uptrending necklines are generally going to lead to a higher percentage of breakouts, higher percentage win rate, but also higher targets as well being achieved. So honestly, the Cardano looks good here. Now in the short term, maybe this takes another little dip and before it's ready to go here. We'll see over the next couple of weeks, but I'd say Cardano overall looks good. I have nothing bad to say about this chart. I actually just set an alarm on my Cardano chart for breaking $1 above $1. I want to be a buyer.
Yeah, we're bullish on ADA. I closed the poll. Are you happy with the Trump administration's progress on crypto? 58% said yes, 41% said no. So interesting there. Also, make sure you guys like the video and are subscribed to the channel. I do want to share this from rwa.xyz. When you look at networks for us, XRP crossing that $1 billion mark. Total value up 7% over the last 30 days. Market share up 6% over the last 30 days as well, as the XRP ledger currently has, again, 1.127 billion in real-world assets that have been tokenized on the platform. Binance Smart Chain. Now, I don't know how much you want to put into this. 13,000% gain. There's only 3, essentially, protocols. Polygon's got a crap load. 494. In fact, I think that's the largest in terms of RWA count, with 400 million in total value. But there's only 3 that are in the 9 digits, and that's Ethereum, ZK Sync, which is essentially Ethereum, and then XRP. Any project not on this list for us that you kind of tie into RWAs that you're bullish on?
No, I mean, for me, it's predominantly like XRP and XLM. I think Solana could be interesting. I'm trying to find a quick tweet from Anatoly, the founder of Solana, because he made just like a pretty. He tweets so much you have to scroll far down. This was it's
like Elon
a day or two ago. Yeah, he's just constantly on Twitter. I will find it, but I like just very much agree with the tweet, and it is a bit of a hot take, but it's here we go. All right, can you guys see this? Hopefully.
Yep. Is there any way you can make it bigger for us?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
All right, so this is the founder of Solana, by the way, and I don't really think they're necessarily a leader in this particular space, but obviously Solana is, permissionless in the sense that you can build anything on it. My contrary opinion, cross-border business-to-business back-end crypto settlement is the only thing that will go mainstream in the next 3 to 5 years, but it will be enormous. This is a very hot take coming from the founder of Solana, of all places.
Right.
But, you look at 13-year-old Ripple narrative is, ironically, as Tully says, one of the top comments, which I agree with this. I actually think that this is the narrative, like stablecoin transfers, cross-border stablecoin remittances, cross-border back-end crypto settlement is the narrative for the next 3 to 5 years. This is the thing that's been that XRP does, that XLM does, that a lot of other businesses are popping up and trying to do. And I think if you zoom out over the next couple of years, like this is pretty transformative technology. And I think if you're patient, it's still very early days for real world assets. Going back to that table that you had brought up, you look at that leaderboard, and I think it's still so early. I think it's anybody's ball game. I think it could be XRP, it could be Stellar, it could be ETH, it could be ZK Sync, it could be Tron or Cardano or I think a lot of these chains can vie for a lot of capital and to build solutions that fit into this narrative. So I think it's just overall early days, and you're going to see a lot. Like look at even those numbers. Most of those numbers are just like green. It's growing week over week, and I think zoom out for 3 to 5 years, these numbers are going to be way bigger than they currently are.
Amen to that. You look at Ethereum's, excuse me, $7.5 billion. That's a lot of money. I agree, Forrest. I think this is one of the verticals that has staying power. Another one that some people are more bullish on than others is gaming. I'm becoming less and less bullish on gaming. I think Rob's a little more bullish on gaming, but over 50% of July's Web3 gaming funding went to a single title, and you won't believe what freaking blockchain it was on. It was Tezos. 60 million was raised in July, 94% increase from the previous month, but 30 million of that went to Reaper Actual, which is an open world MMO FPS on Tezos, led by Brevin Howard Digital. Brevin Howard, 30 to 40 billion in TVL, in assets under management. They're pretty big, hedge fund. And Tezos, interesting one. Do you have any thesis on Tezos, Forrest?
I don't, but I think this speaks to, I think last cycle and even into the bear market, a lot of people were just stuck in this argument of decentralization and transactions per second and like all these little stats about different, blockchains. And what we're seeing is, block space being more commoditized. And certain blockchains having good solutions for different different needs. Do you necessarily need your blockchain game to be? Do you need your MMO FPS shooter game to be as decentralized as Bitcoin? No, I think the answer to that is very obviously like no. You don't need 10-minute block times. You don't need transaction fees north of 25-30 cents for every time you want to do a transaction fee in a blockchain game. So I think my big takeaway from this is that block space is more and more commoditized, and there's different chains that can excel at different things. And I get the whole like decentralization thing, but I think it's a spectrum, and I don't think it's as important for a blockchain game to be as decentralized as Bitcoin is.
I agree. And, and I was victim to this too, earlier, and it's just like, not everything has to be on the fucking blockchain. I think I agree. Like I said, I'm probably becoming less bullish on blockchain gaming. I still think there's potential there, but I think you're better off sticking your money in RWA and AI plays, in my personal opinion. And stablecoin infrastructure. So that'll do it for the show today. I want to give a thank you to our channel sponsor, CAMS Blue Wire Technology. If you want to learn how CAMS can help your business scale and grow in networking, IT, and cybersecurity, visit bluewiretech.com. Click the link in the description of the video. I got a video coming out today. There is a new project that is leveraging ICP and Bitcoin that is looking to be pumped up fun on steroids. You're going to have to watch the video. I explain everything in detail. This is something that we're excited about. And so have a notification bell on. That video comes out today. I'm not sure, maybe in an hour, maybe in 2 hours, but it'll be out today. It'll be fun. We're going to do something fun with that. And so make sure to watch it. And if you do watch it and you're watching it live, put an "Ola" in the comment section so I know that you came from the live and watched it. Forrest, any parting words for we send this thing off?
I'm going to be on the trading channel here in a few minutes, so tune into that.
Yep, absolutely. And if you just stay in the chat, you'll automatically be redirected to Sistine Trading. Get in there, like the video, sub to the channel, and you can watch Forrest break down some more charts. So yeah, with that being said, Gina, roll the outro. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Appreciate all of you. Have an amazing weekend. Love you guys. Go have fun with Forrest. Trading stream. See you next time. Peace.
Sin City, crypto. Everybody know what we here for. Entertainment and info. Gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in. For big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I spit the game, but they gave it. Name the coin, it's your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy the dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin. And sinners gon' play to win. Screaming hola till my bags are flowing over. Hold ya to the moon and to the solar. Won't I? Don't be letting FOMO control ya. It's over.